I want to discuss why you should not start out on a 600cc bike. Now, I've said in some of my videos that if you took the MSF class that you may be able to get by starting out on a 600cc. I retract that statement. Some people can get by on it, but I highly do not recommend starting out on a 600cc Supersport such as this wonderful 2008 CBR 600RR. All right. This is one thing that pisses me off. I always leave the turn signal on every now and then. So I apologize if you see that in my video. I know it maybe kind of irks some of you guys too, but I try very hard to turn the turn signal off, but sometimes I just forget. But let's get out here, baby. Let's do a little motovlog. Alright guys, alright, today, like I said, we're going to discuss why you should not start out on a 600cc Supersport. First off, I want to tell you, most of you guys, any of you guys that keep up with my channel, you know I started out on a 178cc Chinese scooter. And the reason I started out on a scooter is because I wanted to get acclimated to riding on two wheels on the streets, the public roads, without having to worry about shifting. And I rode that scooter for I think about 6 months or so, or a few months before it actually broke down. Actually, I really love riding on that scooter. It was actually really fun. It got excellent gas mileage, and I used to cruise in the parks like I'm doing now on this bike. And I had a good time on it. But I don't recommend getting a Chinese scooter unless you have some good mechanical skills. If you're good, you know your way around, small engines, and you're good with your hands, and you know what you're doing, you'll be fine with a Chinese scooter. And it's actually super cheap to own because the parts are really cheap. They're very plentiful online, and the scooters, not all Chinese scooters are the same, of course. You have some ones out there that are less reliable than others. The scooter that I had wasn't that bad. The BMS Pathfinder, which is also it's the same as the Xingwei scooters, Chinese scooters. But anyways, okay, moving off of scooters here. You definitely want to start out on a 250, and the reason that you want to start out on a 250 is because 250s, first off, they're very lightweight. You want to start out with something that you can throw around that'll give you some confidence going around corners, and something that you can do that on a 250. And especially, I highly recommend the Honda CBR 250R as a starter bike. It's better than in my opinion, it's better than the Ninja 250. Because when I sat on the Ninja 250R, it felt kind of bulky to me. You know, it felt like it was trying to be a bigger bike, and it actually kind of looks like a bigger bike, and it just wasn't confidence inspiring for me. But when I sat on the CBR 250R, man, I was like, man, I want to get cruising on this bike. You know, it just felt so light, and it felt narrow between my legs, and it just. And I was ready to learn on that bike. As where the Ninja 250, it didn't feel good to me. Now, a lot of you guys are going to argue and say the Ninja 250 is better, that you guys like it because it has more top end, but also it has shitty low end as well. You know, as where the CBR 250R is better on the low end than the Ninja 250R. You're going to get more torque out of that single cylinder engine on the CBR 250R down low than you are on the Ninja 250R. And also with the CBR 250R and the Ninja 250R, any 250 that you get, you buy used, you can pick it up fairly cheap. I mean, you can get it as low as what, $2,500 or less used. You know, don't buy it new. I repeat, do not buy a 250 new. It's totally unnecessary, and you're going to lose money. So if you want to lose money, get a 250 or brand new. Otherwise, go on Craigslist, try to find a good quality used 250. You'll pay, like I said, anywhere from $2,000 to $2,500. That you don't want to spend any more than that, really. And learn on it for at least a few months, or however long it takes you to feel that you feel confident that you're ready to move on to a bigger bike. Or maybe you want to stay on that bike. You know, everybody doesn't move up to a bigger bike. Some people like the 250, and that's all they need, especially like in third world countries, and they have really crappy roads. Shit, a lot of them are riding 125cc bikes. And 250 is like a super sport to them. So, but yeah, the 250, you start to feel comfortable on it. You're going to be able to throw that bike around in the corners. It's in a more upright position than a super sport bike, so it's good. You're going to feel real confident on the bike, and the maintenance is very cheap on the bike. You probably won't even change the oil. You know, by the time you learn how to, when you acquire all your skills after riding the 250, I'd say probably it'd take you no more than maybe about 3 months. You probably won't even be able to get a chance to do an oil change on the bike. But start on the 250. Put it back on Craigslist once you feel that you're ready to move up to the next bike, and you'll probably be able to sell it for the same price you picked it up, and you won't lose any money at all. I'll tell you, if you start out on a 600cc bike, you run the risk of laying the bike down. And I know you don't want to lay down your dream bike, man. You want to... Now, a 250, if you lay it down, it's probably already, you know, if you get it off of Craigslist used, a lot of times they've already been dropped. So, I mean, you're not trying to keep that bike pretty. But when you get your 600cc Super Sport, you're going to want to keep this bike pretty, man. You don't want to drop it, you know. And when you start on this bike, the power on here is like night and day compared to the 250. The 250 is like a scooter compared to this bike as far as the power. We're talking about a bike here. This 2008 CBR 600RR ran a 10:52 in a quarter mile. That's less than a second than the CBR 1000RR, which ran, I think, like a 9.8 in the quarter mile. So that's not even a full second faster than this bike in the quarter mile. So this bike is a beast. And the problem that you're going to run into if you start out on a 600cc bike is really probably not riding in a straight line. It's going to be when you hit these turns here. Even when I first started on this bike, coming from the CBR 250R, the very first time I rode this bike, I cranked it just a little bit more by accident on the turn, and the rear wheel just slightly slid. And I tell you, that shit'll scare you, man. If you crank that throttle hard enough, you're going around the turn and you catch some gravel or something, man, your ass is going down. So, like I said, you don't want to jack up your brand new, you know, pretty 600cc bike. You want to keep it looking pretty, and you want to keep yourself looking good, man. You don't want to crash on your bike. So, you know, it's just like learning to walk. You know, when you're a baby, you have to crawl before you walk, and you have to walk before you run. You know, you want to gain all the skills you can on the 250. That's your crawling. And then when you feel that you've acquired all the skills necessary, that you feel confident that you can move up to the bigger bike, then you're ready to walk on the 600cc bike. In my opinion, it's not necessary to move up to a leader bike, but a lot of you guys will disagree with me because you like to say that a leader bike has more lower end power than this bike and that it's absolutely needed for the streets, which is complete, utter bullshit. This bike hauls ass off the line. It's all the low end power you need on this bike. Like I said, I cruise around on this bike at 4K RPM or less sometimes. Just as you can see here, I'm doing 4K RPM here in the park. And if I want to crank this, I could pull a wheelie right now. I throw this in lower gear and I'll bust a wheelie on this bike. It's got all, like I said, it has all the power you need. But you know what? Like I said, if you want a leader bike, you know, that's your personal prerogative. Get a leader bike. Get a ZX14R. Have the most powerful bike on the street. But in my opinion, it's like having a 30-inch dick. You only can use 20% of that dick. So what's the point? Just to, I guess, to show you're a badass with a big, huge dick hanging down your legs. It's the same with the bike. You're riding around here on this, your huge big bike. I guess it makes you look like makes you feel like you're a tougher guy on the streets or something. I don't know. Now I can understand it, if you're doing touring. Actually, I'm not cracking on people that own the ZX14R because that bike is really kind of like a sport touring bike. And there's nothing wrong with you guys owning, any of the bikes that you get. It's your business. Like I said, as long as you're riding and you're happy, that's all that counts. That's all that counts. You don't shit on what anybody else says. Just there's always going to be haters, and I'm not hating. Like I said, I may end up with a leader bike, but I just said I don't need it. I might want it in the future, but I definitely don't need it on the streets. Like I said, if the CBR 1000RR gets redesigned and it looks really badass, I might pick up one of those bad boys because I'm a Honda fanboy to the bone, and I don't care what you haters say. Honda makes the best quality bikes, period. This is well known. These bikes are renowned. These bikes, if you take care of these bikes, they will last well over 100,000 miles. There's a ton of Hondas out there, Honda bikes with over 100,000 miles. You're not going to find a ton of Kawasaki's or Suzuki's or, Triumph, Daytonas or whatever. You're not going to find a lot of those bikes with over 100,000 miles on them. And I'm not saying that there are no other bikes out there with over 100,000 miles. I'm sure there are. And you take care of them very well and you fix what needs to be fixed. I'm sure you could probably make it last, no problem. But Honda builds the best quality bikes, period. And I don't care what you say. Just look at their manufacturing process. They wear white lab coats. And if they when they manufacture these Honda bikes, and if they so much as get a speck of dirt on their lab coats, they do a thorough investigation. That's how anal they are. That's why when you get these bikes, you don't have any problem with Hondas. Very rarely. I'm sure there's instances where the people have had problems, but for the most part, overall, these are the most reliable bikes, period. And I'm not saying that because I own this bike and I've owned only Honda bikes except for the Chinese scooter. I'm telling you that because all you have to do is go out there and do the research, baby. Go talk to Honda owners. But start on the 250, baby. Getting back to the topic. Start on the 250, okay? Don't worry about how cool you look. See right here, this turn right here, baby? If you crank the throttle too hard on the turn with this 600, you run the risk of fishtailing and get knocked off your bike. You don't want to do that. Learn on the 250, all right? Forget trying to look cool. I don't care how you look. I don't care if your ass is 6'6". Start on the damn 250. Don't worry about how you look. You know, stop worrying trying to get approval from other people. Stop trying to impress other people. Be yourself. Be your own person. Haters are going to be haters. This is you and the bike, period. It's just you and the bike. Nobody else, man. This is your happiness. And eventually, when you acquire the skills, you'll get that pretty bike that you want, your dream bike. And you'll be prepared for it, and you'll be able to take care of it. Really, that's all I had to talk about today. Like I said, I've got some review videos coming up. I'll have a full review on these AGV Willow pants and this AGV Sport Laguna leather, perforated leather jacket that I'm wearing. Actually, I already did a review on that. My bad. I'll include the video link in this video. I'm sorry, the Scorpion EXO 500 helmet I'll be doing a full review on. And I'll compare it to the Scorpion EXO 400 helmet and also an AGV helmet that I have. And so I'm going to talk about I'm going to review a lot of things that you don't see in other reviews online. Because believe me, I look at all the reviews before I purchase products. You always want to check the comments. Well, go to Amazon and check out the comments. Go to Motorcycle Superstore. Always look at those comments and people that do reviews on the products, because they'll tell you a lot about these products. So, hey guys, that's it, baby. Until next time, I'll catch you guys later.